The Assembly will hear a statement by Prime Minister Erna Solberg, Prime Minister of Norway. May I request the protocol to escort Her Excellency. I have the great pleasure in welcoming the Prime Minister of Norway, Ms. Erna Solberg. The podium is yours, Excellency.
Presidents, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. In 1945, we established the United Nations. We pledged to save future generations from the scourge of war, to work together to promote economic and social advancement, to uphold and respect human rights and fundamental freedoms for all. And our job is not done. Challenges remain, but progress can be and must be made. Our common global interests are also national interests. We can achieve more when we act together. Both our prosperity and many of our challenges are a result of global threats. Trade conflicts, violent extremism, climate change, and instability at the global level directly affect us at home. But so do also the benefits of world trade, the global fight against infectious diseases, and the rule of law. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals recognize the global challenges are national challenges and that they are closely interlinked. The goals require us to take both national and international action. We must deal with the challenges of globalization while at the same time maximize the benefits for our citizens. Our job as leaders is to deliver security, jobs, education, and healthcare. Working together has enabled us all to do far more than we could have done alone. Norway has taken national and international action through our national policy to promote sustainable livelihoods, through our Nordic and European partnerships on economic and civic integration, and through global action to promote peace and security, sound management of the oceans, fair and regulated trade, education for all, and global health measures. Together, we have achieved impressive results because international cooperation works. Extreme poverty has been halved. People live longer. Children mortality rates are falling, and more girls are attending school than ever before. Global political cooperation, global trade, and international law has been crucial to this progress. President, we have to recognize that globalization has not been equally beneficial to all. This is a very real challenge. Exclusion can spur radicalization. It can undermine confidence in international institutions and cooperation. Eventually, it could weaken respect for international law, human rights, and even our security architecture. To counter this, we must secure future welfare of a rapid growing population. This requires both protection and reform of the fundamental trade norms. We cannot afford to let protectionism, discrimination, and economic rivalry define our future. The V2 is essential for Norway and our interaction with the world. I believe rules-based trade is just as important for our partners. Free trade creates winners. Protectionism does not. In order to benefit all, rights and rules and responsibility must be modernized to fit our current global economy. This is vital if we are to build a world where people's potential, creativity, hope for the future can be realized through cooperation, exchange, knowledge, and trade. Increased protectionism forces us to reflect on what less international cooperation would entail. President, as we agreed in 1945, all nations must unite in a commitment to maintain international peace and security. The consequences of instability affect us all. A global security threat requires global responses. The Security Council must be able to act, and so must we, as nations and as regional organizations. Areas of conflict and instability are breeding grounds for violent extremism and international terrorism. The conflict in Syria is but one example. Many different actors are involved, both state and non-state. Banned weapons of mass destruction have reappeared. Humanitarian access is obstructed. Respect for human rights and international law is undermined. On my own continent, Europe, fundamental rules and principles of international law are now in jeopardy. Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity within international recognized borders must be restored. Violent extremism, conflict, and instability lead to humanitarian crisis and violations of human rights. These, in turn, are some of the main drivers of both regular and irregular migration. Terrorism and violent extremism affects us all and are not limited to any single ideology, religion, or belief. Norway is standing up against violent extremism and terrorism, not in response to individual incidents, but as a long-term foreign policy commitment. We are one of 79 members of the Global Coalition Against ISIL, but by working together, we have achieved significant results on the ground. Still, in the continued fight against violent extremism, we must apply a whole-of-society approach. We must address the root causes in the Middle East and elsewhere, including in our own countries and continents. We must bring individual perpetrators to justice and prevent impunity. Norway believes that those responsible for grave violations of international humanitarian law must be held accountable. We remain a staunch supporter of the ICC as an independent institution. At the same time, security is closely linked to sustainable development. We must boost trade and job creation, build capacity for generating domestic revenue, strengthen public service delivery, and combat corruption. Corruption fuels inequality, crime, instability, and violence. President, conflicts can reverse years of social and economic progress. Conflict prevention, peacekeeping, disarmament are all vital if we are to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. We should heed the Secretary General's call for a surge in peace diplomacy. Norway is doing its part. Since the end of the Cold War, conflict mediation and resolutions have been a cornerstone of our foreign policy. For more than 25 years, we have engaged in efforts to resolve conflicts around the world, from the first Oslo Accord in 1993 to the ongoing work in Colombia and the Philippines, and back to the Middle East. We have learned an important lesson from our efforts. Negotiating a peace agreement is always difficult, but implementing the agreement is even harder. In fact, conflict resurgence is more common than the onset of new conflicts. This means that the best way to prevent conflict is to ensure that peace is sustainable. Norway remains committed to, in Colombia, the Philippines, and elsewhere, just as we remain committed to helping to achieve a negotiated two-state solution between Israelis and Palestinians. President, the adoption of Agenda 2030 with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals demonstrates the unique value of the United Nations. We have agreed on a universal development agenda, a roadmap to the world we want. The SDGs are closely interlinked. Achieving Goal 16 on peace, the rule of law, and strong institutions is crucial for ensuring that funds are not lost to corruption. And achieving the SDGs related to economic conditions will make funding available that can be used to make progress on other goals. But we have no time to lose. Sustainable change cannot be brought about overnight. National ownership is critical, but civil society, private sector, trade unions, and the scientific community all have a catalytic role to play. President, in the health area, where it's easy to see that the SDGs apply to us all, health is both a human right in itself and a prerequisite for development. Investments and investing in national health systems are expensive, but failing to do so can prove even more costly. The World Health Organization is working to create a global action plan for a simpler health architecture. This is a response to an initiative by Ghana, Germany, and Norway. The action plan will be presented in Berlin in October. Prevention saves lives, reduces human suffering, enhances economic and social development. And Norway is proud to host the first replenishment conference of the Global Financial Facility in Oslo the 6th of November, and will be contributing substantially to it. Progress on one SDG will stimulate progress on others. For example, child mortality rates fall when mothers have an education. However, there are still more boys than girls who get an education. We have to put girls at the center of our education efforts. But just going to school is not enough. This is why Norway has focused on teaching quality and learning outcomes. Ensuring quality education requires continued international financing, and the financial gap is considerable. It is therefore important to mobilize domestic resources and private funding alongside official development assistance. Norway is doing its part. So far this year, we have allocated approximately $440 million to global education, and we will now increase our support to education efforts targeting girls to nearly $40 million for the period 2018 to 2019. President, clean and healthy oceans that are sustainably harvested are a prerequisite for reaching the SDGs. 50% of the world's oxygen comes from the ocean. 30% of the world's CO2 emissions are absorbed by oceans. Our oceans offers us enormous renewable resources, a source of great promise and economic potential. Almost half of the world's population already depend on oceans for nutrition and employment. But in order to ensure a sustainable ocean economy, we must produce more from the oceans. However, the sustainability of our oceans are threatened. By 2050, they could contain more plastic than fish. Marine litter is one of the fastest growing environmental concerns. And since I started to speak, a further 200 tons of plastic will have ended up in the sea. The UN Environmental Assembly has taken a bold step and adopted a vision of zero discharge of plastic litter into the ocean. Now we must translate this into action. Managing our oceans sustainably is crucial. Increased global funding is imperative, and Norway will dig deep to contribute. We have no time to lose. This is why earlier this week I established a high-level panel for sustainable ocean economy made up of heads of state and governments from all continents. We aim to promote science-based decision-making in fields of ocean economy and ocean management. We will cooperate closely with the UN Special Envoy for the Oceans and other ocean initiatives, and we aim to present our report in 2020. President, for 7 decades, Norway has been a consistent supporter of the United Nations and a rule-based multilateral order. We are one of the largest financial contributors to the UN. We consistently allocate 1% of our gross national income to development aid. There is a broad support for the UN and for our engagement in sustainable development and peace across the political spectrum. In 2021, it will be 20 years since Norway last had a seat in the Security Council, and we are ready to serve again. If we are elected, we will work to make the Security Council more transparent, more efficient, and representative. We will work with other member states, regardless of their size, wealth, or geographic location, to find common solutions. We will draw on our expertise of peace and reconciliation processes. As women's rights and participation are crucial for lasting peace and stability, we will keep this issue high on our agenda. Together with partners from many regions, Norway will support initiatives for sustainable oceans and forests. And we will highlight the consequences of climate change and the links between security and sustainable development. We will promote reform of the Council to make it more transparent and representative and better equipped to deal with the current global realities. Norway will continue to be a consistent partner to the UN. We will continue to seek common solutions to the challenges we face in our common future. Thank you.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank Her Excellency Ms. Erna Solberg, Prime Minister of Norway, for the statement just made, and I request the protocol to escort Her Excellency.